Following the collapse of the Kamakura shogunate and a long period of division, Japan entered a new era, the Muromachi period. It was a time of great contradiction, a few centuries where the peak of refined artistic beauty coexisted with absolute chaos that burned everything to ashes. As the old order collapsed, what did the people believe in, and how did they survive? Today, we track this journey from the birth of the Muromachi shogunate through the chaos of the Warring States period to the dawn of a new, unified Japan. Muromachi Splendor and the two concepts of beauty. In the mid-14th century, Ashikaga Takauji established the Muromachi shogunate, setting up its headquarters in the Muromachi district of Kyoto. Under the third shogun, Ashikaga Yoshimitsu, the government reached the height of its power. He blended the culture of the imperial court with that of the samurai, creating the brilliant Kitayama culture as a symbol of his absolute authority. Its ultimate monument is the Kinkaku, the golden pavilion, covered in dazzling gold leaf. However, as time passed, Japan's sense of beauty moved in the exact opposite direction. Under the 8th shogun, Ashikaga Yoshimasa, despite political confusion, a unique aesthetic world known as Higashiyama culture was born. Its symbol is the Ginkaku, the silver pavilion. It was during this time that the core concepts of traditional Japanese aesthetics, wabi and sabi, were born. Many people tend to think of beauty as something perfect, grand, and luxurious. But the Japanese of this era arrived at the opposite conclusion. Wabi is the mindset of finding spiritual fulfillment in simplicity and a lack of material goods. Sabi is the deep, inner beauty found in things that fade and age over time. Because something is imperfect, it opens up a limitless world of the mind. This philosophy was refined into the tea ceremony, ink-wash paintings, and dry landscape gardens, which represent the universe using only rocks and sand. The tremor and the dawn of the Warring States. Behind this spiritual peace, however, the foundations of society were rapidly crumbling. Repeated famines, diseases, and merciless high taxes pushed the people to the brink. To survive, farming villages naturally began to unite, forming self-governing communities called soson. They created their own rules, took up arms, and grew increasingly independent and resistant to their rulers. This collective power of the common people eventually turned into violent rebellions against lords and the shogunate, known as ikki. When the Onin War broke out in 1467, turning the capital of Kyoto into a wasteland, the authority of the shogunate was completely destroyed. With this, the age of Gekkokujo arrived, a word meaning the lower ruling the higher. It was an era of harsh meritocracy, where bloodline and family name meant nothing, and only raw power and strategy decided survival. This shift was triggered by the actions of one man, Hojo Son. Emerging from an obscure background, he used brilliant strategies to conquer the Izu and Sagami regions, driving out the traditional lords. This surprising event marked Japan's official entry into the Sengoku period, the Warring States period. People no longer followed empty authority. They followed actual power that could protect them. Those who possessed this power were the Sengoku daimyo, the warlords. Takeda Shingen of Kai, Uesugi Kenshin of Echigo, and Hojo Ujiyasu of Sagami. They wrote their own laws, ruled their lands, and fought fierce wars for territory. Sengoku Japan was not just a place of slaughter, but a massive arena where warlords fought for survival. In the latter half of the Warring States period, a unique leader appeared amid the chaos, Oda Nobunaga. At this time, the world was entering the age of discovery, as European explorers sailed the oceans. The waves of this global shift reached the Japanese archipelago, bringing two things from Europe that would fundamentally change Japanese history: firearms and Christianity. Nobunaga did not care about old traditions or customs. He greedily adopted these new technologies and ideas. In the Battle of Nagashino in 1575, he organized a massive deployment of firearms, completely overwhelming the Takeda cavalry, which was feared as the strongest at the time. His innovative mind went beyond the battlefield. While he completely destroyed old religious authorities like the monks of Mount Hiei, he built the magnificent Azuchi Castle as a symbol of his power and the new era. Furthermore, he abolished checkpoints and established Rakuichi Rakuza, free markets that allowed people to trade openly, pouring his energy into boosting the economy. However, his rational, ruthless, and uncompromising personality created deep fear and tension among his followers. In 1582, just before unifying the country, Nobunaga was betrayed by his trusted general, Akechi Mitsuhide, at the Honnoji Temple in Kyoto. Surrounded by flames as the temple fell, the reign of this great innovator came to an abrupt end, shaking the entire nation. Toyotomi Hideyoshi's glory and global vision. When news of this tragedy broke out, one general was fighting the Mori clan in western Japan. This was the future ruler, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Upon learning of Nobunaga's death, Hideyoshi immediately made peace with the Mori clan and turned his army back toward Kyoto at an unbelievable speed. Marching around 200 kilometers in just a few days, this forced march is known in history as the Chugoku Ogayashi, the Great Chugoku Return. This lightning-fast decision allowed Hideyoshi to defeat Akechi Mitsuhide and secure his position as Nobunaga's successor. Just as Nobunaga had built Azuchi Castle, Hideyoshi constructed the massive Osaka Castle as his base for unifying the country. In 1590, he finally achieved the total unification of Japan. Unlike the cold Nobunaga, Hideyoshi was known as a master charmer who preferred witty tactics and negotiation over raw violence. Rising from a peasant background to the highest position of power, his life was the perfect example of Gekkokujo. Once in power, Hideyoshi introduced policies to dismantle the foundations of war. He launched the sword hunt to separate weapons from farmers and conducted the Taiko Kenchi, a nationwide land survey to measure agricultural production. However, his vision did not stop at Japan's borders. Aware of the international dynamics of the Age of Discovery, he aimed for dominance in East Asia and launched two massive military campaigns into the Asian mainland. This required immense wealth and troops, leaving the daimyo and the common people deeply exhausted. The final victor and the dawn of Edo. With his ambitions on the mainland unfulfilled, Hideyoshi reached his final years and passed away, worried about the future of his young son, Hideyori. In the shadow of the declining Toyotomi regime, another man was watching for his chance to claim the next era: Tokugawa Ieyasu. In 1600, a massive battle split the fate of Japan entirely: the Battle of Sekigahara. Ieyasu's eastern army clashed with the western army led by Ishida Mitsunari, who pledged loyalty to the Toyotomi family. More than 150,000 soldiers collided in this historic conflict. Although warlords across the country risked their futures on this clash, it is said the battle was decided in just half a day due to Ieyasu's clever political manipulation. Victorious, Tokugawa Ieyasu established a new military government in Edo, modern-day Tokyo, in 1603. This was the shogunate, known in Japanese as the bakufu. The word bakufu originally meant the general's tent on the battlefield. Over time, it came to refer to the samurai government itself, led by the shogun, who was granted military authority by the emperor. Unlike the previous Muromachi shogunate, the Edo shogunate established by Ieyasu placed the daimyo under strict laws and strategic geographic control, creating absolute stability. In this way, more than a century of civil war came to a complete end, marking the beginning of the Edo period, an era of peace and isolation that lasted for over 260 years, a feat rarely seen in world history. The choices of those who lived through this turbulent era and the new order born from it. Having finally overcome a century of intense civil war, Japan was now heading toward the dawn of a new age, the Edo period, a time of its own unique development.